Sometimes crime does pay the ultimate price. Tonight we bring you tales from the gritty city. Brutal stories from the dirty, dark streets and alleys that are the underbelly of New York, as can only be told by the Hobo. Sometimes the city can be a bad place, and other times, well, the other day I took a newspaper off a fellow alley dweller. There was a story buried somewhere in the back about a rash of homeless people disappearing. Kind of a story nobody really pays attention to. And then a small mention of a couple mob guys found dead in an alley. Then there's the things that don't end up in the paper. Let's just say horrible things happen. Meanwhile, life in the city goes on, day after day, night after night. I never really care about what time it is. The sun's up or it's not. But I always know when it's lunchtime for normal people and for a few lucky bums in Little Italy. Lucinda Lanza, Lunchbag Lucy to everyone but her mother, takes time out of her day 5 times a week to bring some scraps of food down to the back alleys behind her uncle's restaurant. She's a good, clean soul, bringing a taste of life to the dirty remnants of men and women forgotten by society. The people she helps are hungry, grateful, but a couple of the grateful men have a hunger for more than food, and one bastard was eyeing her like a kid in a candy shop. That's why she was always accompanied by her uncle's dishwasher, Minnie, small in name only. He was a cross between a Mack truck and a sumo wrestler. However, today was different. Maybe something came up at the restaurant. Maybe Minnie called in sick. Who knows? One thing I know, Lunchbag Lucy should have called in too. She's been down these alleys feeding the dregs of humanity for years, and being good-hearted, she didn't want to miss a day helping out, especially now that the cold winds have returned. The kind of winds that freeze a man to the core. It could mean a life. She had no idea it could mean hers. I don't care who you are and who you think you know, but you never really know anybody. And when you're dealing with people who have nothing left to lose and everything to gain, well, then you're a walking bag of fresh meat in a dog pound. Benny Borman, unfondly referred to as bag-of-shit Benny to those unfortunate enough to be near him. Huh, funny. I just realized they both had bag in their name. Benny's been licking his broken, gin-encrusted lips for a taste of Lucy for a long time, but that big fat bastard's always waddling behind her, keeping her safe. But today, Lunch was walking all the way down to the back of the alley, all by her delicious little lonesome. Benny quickly looked around. It was just him, Lucy, and old Freddie. He'd rather not have a witness, but Freddie was weak and scared of everything. He could handle Freddie. He couldn't believe it. He was finally going to get to have some fun. As Lucy approached, he could tell she was a little bit nervous, and Benny liked it. As she handed over the sandwich, he slid his gnarled fingers across the back of Lucy's hand, and she shivered. Her skin crawled up the nape of her neck, and the hair on the back of her head literally stood up as she looked into those cold black eyes, the eyes of a shark. His mouth was moving, but Lucy didn't hear him. It was as if she was hypnotized. Then suddenly all the sound of the alley burst into her ears as she tried to wrench her arm from his filthy grasp while he laughed. That's when the explosion came. A terrible burst of light and pain shot through her skull as that bag-of-shit Benny smashed her across the temple with a half-full bottle of gin. And Lucy was finally able to look away, to blackness. Late that night, I found myself in the back of that alley, trying to get away from everybody. Most people don't make it this far back. I was happy to see only Freddy. He doesn't smell as bad. "Hey, old-timer, looks like you got this place to yourself. I hope you don't mind me taking a load off."
I don't know where Benny is. I ain't seen nothing. Nothing.
"I didn't ask you if you did, but now I am."
I don't know anything, man. Please."
"What the hell are you so nervous about, Freddy? Where's that bag of shit Benny?"
"He killed me if I say he killed me. Lucy. Lunchbag Lucy. Lucy."
Lucy. Freddy was shaking like a broken jackhammer, but he told me everything. After knocking Lucy senseless, that bag of shit dragged her through the window of the abandoned building that made up the back wall of his cardboard condo. The Marplin Building. The former home of Marplin Textiles, now just a home for filthy rats. Normally just the four-legged kind, but tonight I was on the hunt for a two-legged one. Getting in wasn't a problem, I just followed the blood trail. And even in the dark, tracking them wasn't difficult. I could clearly make out the drag marks Lucy's body made. The thing is, this was an old building, and everything creaks in here. It's always possible, though, that Benny was occupied and wouldn't hear me. The trail led into a stairwell and up to the third floor, and that's when I saw the light. Just a slight flicker in the blackness, coming from underneath the door. It was slightly ajar, and I knew I was getting close because I could smell him. It seems everywhere Benny went, he left behind a lingering odor. Looking through the gap, I saw her. The room was a big one, with hooks hanging from racks all around the ceiling for hanging textiles or something, I don't know, with a large skylight in the center. But my attention was fixed on a table in the middle of the room, where, bathed in moonlight cast down from the heavens, a naked lady was lashed, tied down in spread eagle, stripped naked and bleeding, her face a mask of blood, dirt, and tears. Benny was sitting on a small crate next to the table. He obviously wore himself out. The moment I stepped into the room, Benny spoke.
"Hey, it's Hobo. Did Freddy tell you I was here? Looks like I'm going to kill that old bastard after all. Come on in, Hobo. She's all primed and ready for you."
"You piece of shit. You got it wrong, Benny."
"Oh, Mr. High and Mighty, if you're her knight in shining armor, you're late. But since you're here, you might as well have some fun with her. We did."
At that exact moment, I heard the creak of the floorboards behind me, and immediately threw myself to the side. A half-second slower, and my sneaky attacker friend would have brained me with a 2x4. I rose up and turned just in time to notice the second bum rushing at me from the shadows. The moonlit room revealed a glint of steel flashing in his hand. He was coming quickly, but I had all the time I needed to see what he was going to do. Just when he thought he had me and punched his stabber at my heart, I sidestepped and grabbed his arm with a grip like a steel vice. The force of his charge allowed me to wheel him around and then switch back with a smooth, violent jerk. His wrist twisting horribly, wrenching bones and tearing ligaments. The momentum flipped him off his feet, but I did not let go. There he lay on his face, screaming, his arm behind and my foot on his back. I then grabbed his elbow and pushed down hard. His body convulsed, and I felt everything in my hands break or dislocate. The whole thing was over in about 4 seconds. I dropped his useless arm, and he screamed like a little girl. A quick stomp to the side of his face shut him up. Now a 2x4 was coming at me. I could see behind him that piece of shit Benny, and behind him, she still laid there, still bathed in that moonlight like a heavenly creature being tortured in hell. 2x4 just stood there, the board in his hands held out like a puny shield. I could see in his eyes that he wasn't sure about this fight anymore, but I was far from done, and I wouldn't give him another moment to think about it. I flew towards him, shot my left arm out in a feint. He raised the board to block me. Then I shifted my balance, cocked my knee up and turned backwards, and snapped my leg out like a torpedo. The spinning back kick shattered the board, and it splintered jagged edges, and my foot slammed into his face, rocking his head nearly off his shoulders as he flew backwards and almost collided with Benny, who managed to make it to the other side of the table. 2x4 lay in a motionless heap, bent over backwards on the small crate Benny was sitting on. I stared at him over that horrible vision of Lucy. She struggled uselessly to free herself as Benny raised up the big gin bottle to finish what he started in the alley. There was no time. I raced towards him like shot through a barrel, stomped my foot down on 2x4's chest, and sprung up with the sound of his fracturing torso, catapulting up and over the table. Pulling both knees up, all Benny had time to do was open his eyes wide as a bone and muscle cannonball flew across the table. At the last second, my leg shot out, and a blurry, street-hardened foot exploded into the face of that bag of shit Benny. 2 hours later, Benny somehow managed to crack open one gummy, dry, blood-sealed eye and found himself trussed up like a stinking turkey, hanging from one of those ceiling hooks. He couldn't move. All he could do was hang there, slowly swinging back and forth like a pendulum with a shit stain on the bottom of it. His face was nearly twice the size and hurt like hell. His busted mouth was half full of blood and saliva, and you could barely tell that the misshapen thing under his opened eye was ever even a nose, as it flapped with Benny's ragged breath. All he could do was look out of that one open eye. That's the moment he wished I had killed him, because as he hung there, gently swaying side to side, slowly turning, he saw standing before him the entire Lanza clan. Every face he saw was hell looking back at him, until he came to the dirty blood and tear-stained face of Lunchbag Lucy. She stood there, wrapped in someone's coat and nothing else. Nothing but a broken gin bottle gripped in one hand. Her eyes stared at him. Eyes that once looked out at the world with hope and kindness and a desire to help those unfortunate souls, were now bloodshot Stygian pools rippling with hatred. He tried to scream, but his mouth just didn't work anymore. All he could utter was a hideous, wet, gurgling noise. Then Lucy raised the broken, jagged bottle, and the entire Lanza clan moved towards him. In the days that followed, when the Denzians of the alleys behind the restaurant got hungry, they had to fend for themselves. Lunchbag Lucy never returned. And Benny, nobody ever saw Benny again. And unlike other recently missing homeless people in the news lately, fittingly, nobody cared. Like I said, sometimes the city can be a bad place, and other times it can be downright horrifying.